One look, and exactly 4 seconds of silence. That's all it takes for your opponent's mask to shatter, forcing them to start justifying themselves for things you never even accused them of.
This isn't magic. It's a Machiavellian trap. You help liars deceive you every time you politely fill the dead air. But today, I'm going to teach you how to create a power vacuum that leaves any manipulator gasping for psychological air. Type "I see through it" in the comments. Let's begin.
Interesting fact, a liar desperately needs your validation, a nod, a slight smile, or even a brief "aha." In neuropsychology, this is known as social validation. When someone lies, their prefrontal cortex is working overtime, trying to juggle 2 realities at once, what actually happened and the fiction they're selling you. Your reaction is their green light, the signal that their lie has been successfully bought and paid for.
But when you trigger the silence protocol, disaster strikes. The lie hangs in the air, unsupported. At that moment, the manipulator's brain enters a cognitive loop. They start frantically looking for leaks in their story. Silence speaks louder than any accusation.
In Machiavelli's world, silence is the ultimate form of dominance. Why? Because a confident person doesn't feel the need to fill the void. A liar, however, perceives the pause as a rejection. To them, your silence isn't just an absence of words, it's a mute indictment.
Their brain turns against them. Why is he quiet? Did I miss a detail? Can he see my pupils dilating? While you simply watch, they are fighting an internal war with their own paranoia. Think of high-stakes business negotiations or executive-level interviews. When a seasoned pro asks a tough question, they don't react to the answer.
They just keep staring, unblinking. The liar, driven by an instinct to fill the gap, starts overselling the lie, giving extra details, shifting their tone, or, more importantly, defending things you didn't even question. They are effectively building the case against themselves. In the psychology of influence, this is called creating an information vacuum.
When you stay silent, the liar feels as if they're standing naked on a stage under a spotlight. In 90% of cases, people can't handle the pressure and start leaking information, just to end the unbearable interrogation of your silence. You simply let their own conscience, or their paranoia, do all the heavy lifting for you. Machiavelli knew it best. The most effective way to trap an enemy is to let them tighten the noose around their own neck.
The black hole gaze. Your silence is interpreted by the liar as, "I see your game, and I'm waiting for you to confess." You don't argue, you don't interrupt, and you don't go looking for evidence. You simply let their own conscience, or their paranoia, do all the heavy lifting for you. Machiavelli knew it best. The most effective way to trap an enemy is to let them tighten the noose around their own neck while they scramble to explain the unexplainable.
Before you start that 4-second timer, you must lock on to your target. In the world of Machiavelli, power begins with the one who refuses to look away first. But your task is not merely to watch, it is to paralyze your opponent's will. Here is the practice, the Glabella Point.
Do not try to look into both eyes at the same time. It creates a shifty-eyed effect and betrays your own insecurity. Instead, fix your gaze strictly on the point right above the bridge of the nose, just between the eyebrows. In medicine, this spot is called the glabella. It works because the other person can't quite tell where you're looking.
It feels as if you are staring straight through their skull, into their very thoughts. This robs them of any chance to read your reactions through your pupils. Think of it as the X-ray effect versus the social gaze. Average people use a social gaze, shifting their eyes from one pupil to the other and then to the mouth to build trust.
The predator's stare is static. You must eliminate all blinking and micro movements of the eyeballs. In psychology, this triggers the unblinking predator effect. When you don't blink, your subject's brain subconsciously registers an imminent attack.
Look at modern reality, the zero-emotion gaze. Watch professional interrogators or high-stakes poker players. They use what is known as the marble stare. The face remains absolutely motionless while the eyes lock in place.
If the other person tries to crack a joke to break the tension, and you don't shift your gaze or offer even a hint of a smile, their nervous system will glitch. Silence combined with this look creates a tunnel effect. The rest of the world vanishes for the liar, leaving only your face, waiting for the truth. There is a fascinating fact about dominance through the pupils. Research shows that when we look at something we like, our pupils dilate.
A liar is subconsciously searching for that dilation in your eyes. They want to see that you like their story. But when you focus on the glabella, they can't catch that signal. You become a black hole that swallows their arguments without giving anything back. Try the glassy stare technique. Imagine you are looking at an object about 1 meter behind the person's head.
Your focus should be slightly softened but fixed on that single point. This creates a chilling effect of total zero empathy. Machiavelli knew that people don't fear the one who is angry. They fear the one who is stone cold. Your task is to show that their words trigger neither anger nor belief.
Only cold observation. The moment your subject finishes their tirade, freeze. Imagine that time has stopped. In this moment, you aren't just being silent, you are creating a high-pressure zone.
In social engineering, these 4 seconds are called the half-life of a lie, the breakdown by the second, a chronicle of the collapse. During the first second, the expectation phase, their brain is still coasting on inertia, waiting for a standard social response, like a nod, a question, or a brief verbal cue. At this point, the liar still feels like the master of the game.
They have just released their lie into the world and are waiting for it to take root. Your motionless face in this moment is the first glitch in their system. During the second second, cognitive dissonance, the smile freezes and begins to slowly slide off their face. Their inner voice is whispering, "Something is wrong. Why is there no reaction?"
At this stage, they begin frantically double-checking their last few words. This is where the disguise develops its first crack. You will see their pupils make micro-movements as they try to guess your thoughts. During the third second, biological panic, the amygdala kicks in. The brain interprets your silence as a hidden threat.
There is an instant spike of cortisol and adrenaline. Your subject begins to physically feel a lack of air. You might notice them sway slightly, shift their weight from foot to foot, or nervously clench their fingers. Their body is literally screaming. The silence is unbearable. Do something.
By the fourth second, surrender. This is the point of no return. The instinct for self-preservation forces them to repair the vacuum you've created. But since they have no truth to offer, they begin to bury you under excessive arguments. They start justifying themselves for things you never even questioned. This is the moment of self-exposure.
There is a compelling concept called the interrogator effect. In intelligence schools, there is a golden rule: let the silence do the work for you. Machiavelli knew this intuitively. Power is the ability to endure uncertainty longer than your opponent. When one side names a figure in a negotiation, the experienced negotiator doesn't argue. They simply look and remain silent. During the frozen gaze technique, it is vital not just to be quiet, but to control your eyelids. If you blink, the pressure drops. Blinking is read as an internal concession. But if you hold those seconds with a steady gaze, the liar will feel as if they have slammed into a concrete wall. Your victory marker is the fourth second, when they begin to justify themselves for things you never even questioned.
Machiavelli knew that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Point 1. Excessive details, known as the clarification trap. A sincere person speaks concisely, but a liar feels their story isn't heavy enough and starts piling on new details. They are trying to pave over the void created by your silence, often tripping over their own words.
Point 2. Dryness and the fear swallow. When the brain detects a threat, salivation stops because digestion is no longer a priority. The marker is a sharp, heavy swallow, or the licking of the lips. They are literally trying to swallow their fear. In professional interrogation, this is called a blocking signal, as their throat tightens up from the pressure.
Point 3. Neck scratching and self-cleansing gestures. The neck is a vulnerable area, and when we sense danger, we subconsciously try to cover the jugular vein. Research shows that scratching the neck exactly 5 times is a classic sign of deception. If they reach for their neck or fiddle with their collar, they feel the noose of your silence tightening.
Point 4. The eyes. The search for an exit. Watch for the eye escape, where their gaze darts toward a window for a fraction of a second. Their subconscious is looking for a physical escape route from the unbearable silence. Use the cold observation technique. Do not change your facial expression, and do not gloat when you notice these cracks.
Point 5. The Pinocchio nose, also known as the erectile tissue effect. It sounds like a myth, but it is actual physiology. Under the intense stress of lying, blood rushes to the nasal tissues, causing a slight itch, known as a histamine reaction. For instance, if at the 4th second they suddenly touch the tip of their nose or rub it, their body is literally signaling a lie.
Machiavelli taught to conceal your intentions until the very end. Simply register these cracks in their armor. Your composure against the backdrop of their agitation. That is your ultimate trump card.
If by the 4th second of silence the liar breaks and begins to justify themselves, congratulations, you've won. But do not rush to celebrate. In the world of Machiavelli, it is not enough to simply catch the beast. You must force it to lock its own cage. Your primary mistake at this stage would be to start arguing or accusing them.
Instead, apply the pattern interrupt technique. Insight 1. The power of the passive interrogator. When a liar starts upselling you on their version of events, they are expecting counterarguments. Their brain is wired for a fight, for defense, for a counterattack.
But when you simply remain silent and listen, you rob them of their footing. Your silence forces them to keep talking, and the longer they talk, the more dirty laundry they air out. Let them talk themselves out. Wait for the moment they fall silent on their own, suffocating under their own lack of credibility.
The technique, the lethal counter-question. As soon as they finish their attempt to justify themselves, slowly tilt your head to the side and ask just one question while looking directly at the bridge of their nose. Interesting. Why did you choose to tell me about this specifically now? And then fall silent again for another 4 seconds. Why it works? This question doesn't target the content of their lie, but rather their motivation. You are effectively saying, I see that you are trying to manipulate my opinion, and I am curious as to why you feel the need to do so. This instantly shifts them from the status of attacker to the status of suspect. Insight 2. Attention inversion.
In Machiavellian strategy, this is called exposing intentions. Instead of discussing the lie itself, which they have prepared, you discuss their behavior, for which they are unprepared. You force them to explain not what happened, but why they are acting so restless now. The practice, the patronizing deity gaze.
While they are offering their justifications, add a faint, almost imperceptible smirk to the corner of your lips, but maintain a cold stare. This creates an effect of cognitive superiority. Your subject feels like a foolish child trying to trick an adult. This final blow completely shatters their self-control.
In his treatise, The Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli advised rulers to surround themselves with people who feared lying more than telling the bitter truth. He understood that flattery is a poison that kills an empire from within. But how do you distinguish a loyal advisor from a sugar-coated flatterer? Machiavelli used silence as a sieve.
Insight 1. The sieve of silence. During the Renaissance, court culture was defined by verbosity. Everyone was trying to guess the sovereign's desires to win favor. Machiavelli, however, suggested the tactic of the empty throne in conversation.
When you remain silent in response to flattery, the flatterer begins to feel threatened. They don't know if you are pleased or in a silent rage. The result? A sincere person remains calm in the silence. They have nothing to hide. An intriguer, however, receiving no reaction from you, begins to overplay their hand.
The technique, the loyalty test by gaze. Machiavelli emphasized that a prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Here is the practice. When a subordinate or partner brings you good news that seems too perfect, apply the 4-second rule. Look at them as if you already know the true price of their words.
The effect, a lie, requires constant feeding from the listener. Without your confirmation, the flatterer withers. If they avert their eyes or start to fidget, you are looking at a wolf in sheep's clothing. Leaders in companies like Netflix use radical transparency, creating pauses to let everyone reconsider and tell the truth. An interesting thought: the vacuum as a mirror of the soul. In ancient treatises on power, silence was considered an attribute of gods and kings. Why? Because silence represents an absence of need. When you are silent, you show that you need nothing from the speaker.
A liar, however, is always in need of your trust, your money, or your delusion. Your silence strips them of this resource. As Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. Don't give them that opportunity. Become the one whose silence is more terrifying than a scream."
The old fox gaze. You slightly squinted eyes during your pause. This creates a scanning effect. The speaker subconsciously feels you are searching for flaws in their logic. Machiavelli often repeated that a prince should appear merciful, but be ready for cruelty.
Your silence is that very bloodless cruelty that separates the wheat from the chaff in your inner circle. In the wild, a predator freezes for exactly 1 moment before the strike. Your 4-second freeze is a biological trigger that bypasses the speaker's cortex and activates their reptile brain. This isn't just a pause, it's a hack into their survival system.
Insight 1. The stillness effect. When you freeze and stop blinking, the speaker's subconscious reads it as a threat to their life. In nature, only 2 types of creatures stare long and motionless: a predator before an attack, or a corpse. Since you are breathing and standing before them, the liar's brain chooses the first option.
The biological marker, their fight or flight response, is triggered. But since they can't run and they can't fight, their energy turns into verbal diarrhea. They start justifying themselves, not because you accused them, but because their instincts are screaming, "Do something before he strikes." For the biological hack to work, you must become absolutely motionless. The practice during these 4 seconds: do not adjust your clothes, do not shift your weight from foot to foot, and most importantly, do not lick your lips. Your body must be like a rock.
The effect is this. Any micro movement you make is a sign of stress. Your absolute stillness against the backdrop of their agitation is proof of your superiority. The liar stops seeing you as a human and starts seeing you as an inanimate force of justice. Consider a modern reality: the special forces stare.
In the training of elite units, there is an exercise for suppressing the will. Soldiers are taught to look through a person, not focusing on details, but maintaining total control. When you apply this in a normal office or at home, you create the abyss effect. The other person looks into your eyes and sees no empathy or understanding, only cold expectation.
This shatters their social masks in seconds. There is a fascinating fact about trapped mirror neurons. Our mirror neurons force us to sync with our opponent's pace. If they speak fast, we speed up.
Now, when you abruptly break the rhythm and drop into silence for 4 seconds, their neural network slams into a wall. Cognitive shock occurs. To escape this state, the liar's brain is ready to surrender any information: the truth, secrets, confessions, anything just to restore the familiar rhythm of communication. Try the frozen lion gaze. Slightly lower your chin while looking at the point above the bridge of the subject's nose.
This head position makes your look from under your brows feel heavier and more oppressive. Machiavelli knew that to lead people, one must understand their animal nature. Your silence is the lion's roar that hasn't sounded yet, but everyone has already heard it. Now you hold a social X-ray in your hands.
From this day forward, the world around you will change. You will begin to hear what people try to hide behind a cascade of unnecessary words. Remember, no one can feed you a lie if you have the courage to simply stay silent.
Insight 1. The responsibility of the fox and the lion. Machiavelli taught that knowledge is a weapon that is useless without will.
Now that you know the truth about the 4 seconds, you can no longer be a victim. You have become the one who sets the rules of the game. Your silence is not passivity. It is the most aggressive form of observation. Use this gift wisely. You don't always need to expose a liar out loud. Sometimes it's enough just to let them know that you see everything.
As a final touch, apply the shadows exit technique. When the liar finally tangles themselves up and lets out the truth after your pause, do not celebrate. Simply nod slightly, as if you knew it all along, and silently leave the room or change the subject. The effect is that you leave them in a state of total paranoia.
They will be tormented by the question, what else does she know? This is the highest form of Machiavellian power, control through uncertainty. Consider the paradox of silence. In modern high-level diplomacy, the most critical decisions are made not during arguments, but in moments of shared silence.
World leaders use pauses to scan each other's intentions. Today, you have mastered their primary tool. To finally lock in this skill and become part of a community that sees the world with filters, follow your power protocol. 1. Subscribe.
We are just beginning to dissect the anatomy of power and dark psychology. Here you will find knowledge they don't teach in universities. 2. Like this video. This is your digital manifesto.
Show the algorithms that you choose to be the player, not the pawn being manipulated. Today, choose one person from your circle, test them with this method, and write in the comments, Protocol Silence Initiated. Your time has started. Act.